trigger warning for sexual content, not graphic, not gory or anything, but respectfully, if you don't want to hear about sex, you should watch another video. This is sex inside of a narcissistically abusive relationship and what it can do. There is a woman and her name is totally Kate. She's really called Kate. Kate found herself in a relationship with a man who was very charismatic and very decisive and driven. And one of the things that Kate found enormously attractive about him, we'll call him Max, is that he was very, very certain. She'd been dating a little bit here and there. She'd been in a long-term relationship with a childhood sweetheart from university, from the age of like 21 to 27. But they moved cities and it wasn't working out and they'd broken up. And so she was feeling a little bit heartbroken over that when she met with Max. And she tried dating other guys and they were all nice and they were fine, but not enthralling. They weren't enthralling. Now, the thing with Max is that he had this certainty about him. He was very decisive to the point of, sometimes even making decisions for her. And as someone with what she would regard as being very progressive and feminist leanings, she guiltily found that she quite liked this. She'd not experienced it before. He wasn't a 2D stereotypical cardboard cutout of a dominant alpha male, but because he was, he had the same interests as her and he also was university educated and he was a smart guy, but he was certain. She felt like a woman in a sea socially of uncertainty. Everybody she knew was tepid, not hot, not cold, just mid and tepid. And nobody really seemed to know what they wanted and nobody really seemed to have a vision. And Max, even though at times his visions were unrealistic to the point of being amusing and grandiose, he had that fire, he had that certainty. And she didn't know why, she just found it really compelling and really, really attractive. He wasn't her type physically, but the charm, the charisma, and the certainty, she really, really liked. And she felt very, very drawn to it. And the other thing was, he was very certain about her. And a lot of the guys that she'd been dating, they liked her and they were interested in her, but they were interested in a kind of a chill, vague, yeah, we can like hang out if you want to hang out kind of a way. But with Max, she felt, he made it clear that he really wanted to see her and that he really valued her time and that he valued her and he showered her with attention. And when she was with him, he looked at her the way other men weren't looking at her. And she liked it. He was direct. He would look into her eyes a lot. And he had that certainty. He had that drive. He had that passion with him. And she really, really liked it. Now, they didn't rush into anything, but they didn't wait a particularly long time either by modern standards. They'd gotten to know each other over a couple of weeks, 10 days. And then nature took its course. And one night after they'd been on a date, they were making out, as the Americans say. And one thing led to another. And they had sex. Welcome. This video is to let you know that we are running a narcissistic abuse deprogramming course intensive. This is for people who are ready and willing to commit the time and the effort into doing the complete narcissistic abuse deprogramming course in a shorter space of time. It will be intensive. It's going to be 4 weeks long. And there's going to be a small cohort of people. The maximum number of people we're letting in for this intensive sprint is 50. If you're the type of person who looks at a course and says, I really want the benefits of that course, but I don't want to spend 12 weeks, I don't want to spend 3 months going through it, I'd rather rip the Band-Aid off faster, then this is the course for you. We're going to be doing weekly live sessions with me where you can ask me questions if you choose to face-to-face. So I can offer you some live support as you are going through the course week by week. It's a 4-week course. We're going to do 4 live sessions with this cohort who are going through the course quickly, because you will be under different pressures than everybody else who's in the Richard Grannon community. You need to be given a different level of attention for the duration, a relatively short duration of the 4-week course. I'm going to be saying, look at this, do the exercise, got it? Go to sleep, wake up, now look at this, do the exercises, and again and again and again over 4 weeks. My prediction would be that you would do the course, you should feel pretty good, but then you'll notice the changes, you'll notice changes during the course, but you'll notice massive changes then in the 4 to 6 weeks after the course has finished, as your unconscious digests the procedures that you've been through. Obviously, I don't recommend this for people who have self-identified as being high in the spectrum for complex post-traumatic stress, or who are living with a tendency towards anxiety, because it's a lot to do in a short period of time. I don't want you to feel pressured. Of course, it's not an exam. This isn't school. I'm not a teacher. You can do whatever you like. You'll have access to the material so you can work at your own pace afterwards. But it's just to be clear, this is an intensive course for people who want to rip the Band-Aid off quickly. If that's something that interests you, then make sure you sign up for the 4-week intensive that we will be doing from February the 1st, 2026 to March the 1st of 2026. Now, her initial response to the first time that they had sex was mild shock, because that certainty and that intensity that he had, I don't know, when they were walking around town, or getting food, or going on a date, or going and doing whatever, or when he was talking about his favorite subjects. He brought that to the bedroom times 5. This was a man who knew what he wanted. Now, what he wanted from her sexually was not, strictly speaking, within her normal range of what she would do sexually with somebody, especially not the first time of having sex with them. But she found herself sort of drawn into this hypnotic, lustful state where her primary instinct was to obey him, because he wasn't making loose suggestions like it would be nice if, or maybe we could. He was very direct, he was very decisive, and he was very certain. And it's not like she was drunk or anything. She just found herself doing stuff that she'd only ever done a couple of times with a long-term boyfriend. And she was doing it the first time with this guy. The point here is the experience was a boundary push for her, and it shocked her. Minor shock. It wasn't traumatic. She wasn't upset. She wasn't angry about it. She liked it, but she felt shocked. She'd been pushed beyond her normal limits, and it left an imprint on her. And she didn't really know how to feel about it, because she didn't consider herself, up until that point, a submissive person. But with Max, she observed herself in the second person being ultra submissive with this man who was so certain and so decisive and so passionate and so intense. Even in sex, he was still making that eye contact with her. And she felt like, in his eyes, she was the only woman in the world. She was the only woman that this man wanted, or even could want. I mean, he never said that, but that's how he made her feel. Such was his intensity. And over the days after that first sexual interaction, because she replayed it frequently in her head, which is the nature of shock, not trauma, just shock. It was sexually unusual, and then she had to sort of place it, and it required new thinking. It was almost like a new software download. Do I like this? Should I like this? Can I like this? I think I like this, but I don't think I'm supposed to like this. But then I did, but then I do. And maybe I shouldn't be so stiff. And okay, so very intense, shocking, boundary breaking. The next time they had sex, it was the same experience, but even more intense. And she found, to her, not horror, but to her shock, she very quickly was getting into his stream of how sex would play out. And it was not like her other sexual experiences with other men. She even started to think, with other men, with the sort of the passivity and the indecisiveness. She'd never noticed it before, but she certainly didn't feel exclusive like she did with Max. He made her feel like she's the only woman on earth. He made her feel like he was the object of her, not just affection, but the object of her obsession. And this is a psychologically literate, intelligent, educated woman. She knows that that's not healthy, but she found she loved it. She wanted to be intensely desired. She wanted to experience what it's like to be with a man who was obsessed with her, who had to have her, rather than a guy who was like, yeah, it's chill. Like, we could do this if, like, you want to do it or not. She was like, oh, I've never had this before. And she noticed very quickly, inside of not even weeks, but days, maybe 5 or 6 days, she was thinking about it a lot, and it made her feel really good in a way that nothing else had before. And it had a drug-like quality to it. It made her feel high. And then when he went away, when Max went away for a weekend, she really missed him in a way that she hadn't missed another guy before. And she started to become a little bit anxious in a way that she'd never felt before about the fact that he'd gone away somewhere with his friends, even to the point of becoming a little bit jealous. And her mind was saying things to her like, well, what if he's bringing that level of intensity to another woman? What if the things he's doing for me, he's doing for other women? Now, this is not graphic, but we must go deeper here. Max was clearly very invested in her pleasure. Yes, he was decisive. He knew what he wanted from her, and he let her know in a way that was very verbal and very vocal that she was doing good things. She felt consciously, I shouldn't really like this. This isn't, this is becoming like a dom sub relationship. I don't know whether this is how I see myself, but I like the fact that this is where we're going. And he was doing that with her, but he was very, very invested in her pleasure in a way that other men hadn't been. And she started to wonder if that was deliberate, if that was part of a strategy in some way. She dropped it because he went away for the weekend. He kept in contact with her. Every time she texted him, he would text back, not immediately, but within good time. There was no suggestion of him being up to anything he shouldn't be up to. And besides which, they hadn't even discussed exclusivity yet. But she didn't find herself in a position where she felt like he was up to anything he shouldn't be up to. And she still felt a little bit anxious and a little bit jealous. And then she felt guilty about the fact that she was anxious and jealous because he wasn't around. When he came back, she observed herself, to her shock, being extremely, extremely aroused and desirous of having sex with him again upon his return, as though she wanted to reclaim him, as though he wanted to reclaim her. And then she experienced where in the first few times he'd been very decisive and he'd been very certain, something came out of her where she became very decisive and she became very certain that she wanted to engage in these things that she'd only done before with one long-term boyfriend, and they only did it once or twice when both of them had had a drink. She wanted that, and that's the level that she wanted it from. She matched his intensity. She didn't mean to. It felt like it came from within. It felt like a physiological response that she couldn't control. Time goes by. The relationship develops. They discuss being exclusive. She finds to her relief that he has no problem with it. He even says to her, because she says to him, can we discuss being, it's the modern dating world. Nobody knows what the rules are. Can we discuss exclusivity? And he just says to her relief, I thought we were exclusive from day one. I didn't imagine that we were anything other than exclusive. And she's very relieved to hear that. And she says, where do you see this going? What are we? And he was like, well, we're together. We're in a relationship. I don't do anything else. We're just in a relationship. That's it. And she's like, well, okay, but we haven't discussed it. When did that start? And he said, there's no need to discuss it. You're mine. You belong to me. Intense eye stare. Her conscious mind is saying, I shouldn't like this. Maybe this isn't healthy. Maybe this is this is outside the boundaries of what I should want as a woman, as an educated woman. I shouldn't like this. And she found, again to her shock, that she really liked it. She really liked it. He said to her, you're mine. And she felt good, which put her into shock again. Aside from the story, these kinds of relationships that we can have with people who are a little bit pathological, one of the things that maybe we don't talk about enough is the power of shocking someone and infringing on their boundaries. Because a boundary infringement is not always painful. It's not always unpleasant. Sometimes a boundary infringement can feel good. It can feel good, but the shock factor is important, because when we go into mild shock for the period, you may know this. Well, of course you know. Every human knows this. What's a shocked face? If you're in a theatre school and the director said, "And now you're shocked," you're not going to be like that, are you? You're going to go, oh, sharp intake of breath, mouth opens, eyes go wide. Oh, shocking. Oh my God, shock. Eyes wide, mouth open. Mouth open. Why? Because you're seeking to absorb as much information as you can. The internal dialogue of your thinking stops. Usually we subvocalize. So if you're sat thinking about stuff, you're probably talking to yourself, and there'll be micro movements in your jaw and in your tongue and a little bit in your throat, depending on the person and depending what state you're in, that indicate that you're talking to yourself. You're not talking to yourself when you're shocked. You're just in the moment. Eyes open, wide. Also, when the jaw unhinges, one theory is that you can hear better. So if we were evolutionarily, we're in the woods, we're walking around, we hear a branch snap where it shouldn't, you go, and so you stop breathing, you inhale the breath, so you're ready to fight or flight, eyes go wide, absorb as much data as you can, and listen. And then you can make good decisions. But you don't think. When you're in shock, you don't think. The onboard computer is going, everybody shut up. Listen. That's shock. Now, if it happens over and over again, and obviously she didn't, like, if she was shocked on a Wednesday, she didn't spend all day in a corner going, oh, I can't believe he did that to me. She's going, this, she's going in and out of shock. So she'll go about her normal business, her studying, her working, whatever she's doing. And then she'll think about it. and her eyes will defocus, they'll go glazed, and she'll stare off into the corner of the room, and she'll just go, she'll relive the experience, and she might be happy while she's doing it. There might be a little smile on her face, but it's still shock. Why am I emphasizing this? There are physiological, endocrinal, meaning hormonal, your neurotransmitters, your hormones, central nervous system, neurological responses to this kind of a relationship. And that's what we need to be aware of. Back to the shock. Remember shock. Shock is important. Shock means we're in an impressionable state. If I shock you, anything I say to you after the shock, because, sorry to do this, you're looking for information, and then you're going to take the shocking experience and you're going to file it away. This is like, a neurologist would hear this and probably tear their hair out and throw a fit. But something like this is happening. You have the shocking experience and your brain has to go, what do we do with this? How do we apply meaning to this? And then we file it away somehow. We absorb it into our map of, it's new data, but in order to live, we absorb it into our map of reality. If it's so shocking we can't absorb it into our map of reality, we call that PTSD. You just can't absorb it. And so you just relive it and relive it and relive it. And your body and your brain's going, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What are we doing with this? What are we doing with this? You want to forget about it, but you can't absorb it. So it lingers. And I'm not the first person to say this. That means the best route for dealing, or the only route for dealing with post-traumatic stress, is to help the client file the experience away, apply meaning to it somehow, so that, give it meaning, add it to the narrative of life so that it can be filed away, so you can live. Because otherwise that experience stays here and is relived and relived and relived. So she's having this very intensely sexual relationship that is cycling through boundary breaks and shock and quite strong power dynamics. It's a dominant and submissive, hyperpolarized, very, very masculine, very, very classically masculine polarity, very, very classically feminine polarity type of relationship. It's good sex. It is really good sex. That's not. Sometimes narcissists will gaslight you into thinking that that they're prettier than they are and the sex is better than it is. No, this really is. It really is. Like, all the feedback from her body is saying, this is definitely good. I'm definitely aroused. I'm definitely very attracted to this man. And everything that should happen during sex is definitely happening. And afterwards, I'm very satisfied. And I'm like, in a way that I've never been before. I don't want anything else. I'm not, she's having, sorry, YouTube, she's having good orgasms. Very good, very intense, multiple. We have to look at what that could do to a person. So in this scenario, across time, the sex becomes more intense. It doesn't drop off. It's not like, oh, he love bombed her with sex and then stopped. Not with this guy. The sex became more intense. She discovered an entire new sexual identity. She discovered an entire new sexual identity that is tied to him. It's tied to him. She's never been that way with anybody else before. She doesn't know if she can be that way with anybody else ever again. And then she's comparing it. She hasn't had huge numbers of sexual partners, but she's been with 10 other guys in her life and one long-term boyfriend. And this does not compare. This is not even the same planet. This is a wholly different thing. As it goes on, it's a story of pathology. Yes, he becomes more abusive. He's not sexually neglectful. I know that's a very common story with narcissistically abusive men. They can become very sexually neglectful of their partners as a way of female partners, as a way of punishing them, as a way of controlling them, as a way of coercing them, as a way of torturing them, making them suffer. They won't just withdraw sex, they'll withdraw affection. They'll stop hugging them, they'll stop touching them, they won't hold hands with them, they won't, just randomly breeze past them in the house and give them a kiss on the cheek or on the neck. They won't do anything. They won't look at them. And then if they're really evil, they'll make sure that they can be seen looking at other women or looking at porn. I don't think YouTube's that stupid. I don't think it's going to let me get away with that. Whatever. So he becomes more abusive. And by abusive, this whole hyper-masculine, hyper-femininity, dom sub shtick starts creeping out of the bedroom. So what's happening inside the bedroom, for the first 3 months, it stayed in the bedroom and everything outside was normal. But once she was really on the hook for this highly addictive experience, and highly addictive experiences are not just pleasurable, they're also painful. And the pain here, sometimes some of the things that they were doing physically was uncomfortable for her, and she liked that. She found a whole new part of her that liked that. But when I'm saying uncomfortable, I mean uncomfortable in terms of she was not in control of it, and a lot of what was happening was outside of her personal sexual identity previous to this. Outside of the bedroom, he's now bullying and dominating as well, even sometimes humiliating her in front of other people. Eventually, as much as she likes Max and as much as she likes the experiences she's had with him, she does have pride and she does have boundaries. And she just says, look, I've told you, this is the 5th time we've argued about this. You can't speak to me in front of other people like that. It's not cute. It's not sexy. It's not foreplay. It's not warm up to some sexual game we're playing. You're literally calling me slurs in front of my friends. You even said it in front of my mother the other day. She really doesn't like you. And my mom likes everyone. Word for word, this is what she said. I was there. I heard it. This is an amalgamation of stories. But she does break up with him. She has that strength. She doesn't want to, but she has to. She's just like, I can't be the person who lets somebody do this to me. That's a hard boundary. If he'd done other things, I might have let him get away with it, but he can't insult me and call me this, and this, which he was in the bedroom. That was one of the shocking things he was doing in the bedroom that she was shocked to find she wasn't appalled by, but she liked it inside the bedroom within that sexual fantasy space. She didn't think she'd be okay with it, but she was more than okay with it. She liked it. When she wasn't in a lustful, hypnotic state and she was sober and she's outside the bedroom, she did not like those words being thrown at her. She did not enjoy that at all. And she felt like that was a betrayal. Because over here, I let you do this because we were both having an intimate experience together and it was inside of what I felt like was a safe sexual fantasy space. Now you're taking stuff from the sexual fantasy space and you're bringing it outside, and that's not hot. That's ugly. And this girl couldn't tolerate rudeness. So really strong boundaries around rudeness and ugliness and crude, vulgar behavior and how people behave. She's very well raised. She's a very polite person, well-mannered person. And if her mum doesn't like the fella's doomed because she's not, she's really close to her mum. So she breaks up with him. Then this poor girl is facing a scenario that many of us have faced, which is, can you have that level of sexual intensity and therefore the level of sexual satisfaction with somebody who is not pathological? Let me say this. A pathological person or somebody who's on the spectrum who's emotionally dysregulated, who's hypersexual, who's histrionic, or has elements of that going on in them or has done in their lives, some people, sex becomes very, very important, and sex becomes almost like a ritual. It's like got a religious connotation ritual, a form of worship. And that's powerful. Like if you feel like, say, you're with a man who you admire and he is almost worshiping you in this ultra altered state that's very physically pleasurable and very physically intense, and it's emotionally intense. And there's no wrong moves. Like this guy doesn't put a foot wrong. Like everything is fantastic. That's going to be very powerful. It's going to have a very powerful impact on the physiology. And then the question becomes, can you replace it? Why do pathological people do that? Why do people who are very emotionally dysregulated do it? I have a few ideas. One is I think it's very, very tempting to use sex as a way of getting out of your own body. So if you are emotionally dysregulated and you don't feel very good, you learn, well, if you lose yourself in a book, you dissociate and it's a good book, it's great and it can become addictive. A video game, gambling, porn, drugs, these can be powerful tools of dissociation that allow me to escape. Hypersexual people use sex and use people to escape from the uncomfortable sensations of emotional dysregulation, heavy superego injunctions. They just don't feel good. But then in that safe space, that sexual fantasy space, they feel good and they can escape. I actually saw a woman on Instagram recently talking about her hypersexuality, and I can't remember her name. I'm so sorry. But she said, I used to use people like drugs. I used to use sex like a drug. And I was like, I feel you on a deep, deep level. Yes, I've been there. I've definitely done that. So it's a form of escape. That's one thing. That's pretty innocent. Person doesn't feel good, but they know if they have intense sexual experiences with their partner, or maybe with multiple partners, I don't know, they can escape. Moderately innocent. Moderately. Not so healthy, but moderately innocent. This next one is not innocent. Control. If I'm Max, I'm the pathological one. If I can give you very, very intense and unusual sexual experiences that are very pleasurable and very satisfying, I'm not stupid. I know full well you're going to struggle to replace that. It's not impossible to replace it, but you'll struggle because I know the majority of people, Gen Pop, they're just not going to do that because they haven't thought about it. I'm being pathological now. I've thought about it. I've studied this. I've learned it. So it's a good way for me to control you. So that's quite predatory. That's quite nasty. So I put the hook in you. I know you're not going to get it anywhere else. Go try. Oh yeah, it wasn't very good. Quelle surprise. Oh, he didn't do that for you, what I do for you. Quelle surprise. Oh, he wasn't decisive or dominating or whatever the games is that you'll like to play. Whatever that fires up the lights you up and releases the dopamine, whatever it is. Are you going to go get that from someone else? Yeah, go try. See how it goes. And then there's this other part that is somewhere between the innocent and nasty, I would say, which is the desire to stop you from leaving them. You won't leave me if you can only get this from me. So there's probably more, but there's at least 3 strong incentives for pathological, narcissistic, psychopathic, borderline, histrionic people to give you very, very intense sexual experiences. I've had many people say to me, I'm worried I'll never have a sexual experience the same as I did with that person who's not very mentally well. And I have no solution. So what we've done is we've created an app. It's over on richardgrannon.com where codependent, nice people can get really freaky with these. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. Come on, guy. It's a joke. You pay for it though, right? See, that's how I'm going to make my millions. That's what I'm going to do. It'll be called the Freaky Codependent app. We might have to edit this out. That's what I wanted to say. If you've experienced that and you've struggled with that and you've struggled to resolve it, please post comments below. I don't know how to resolve it. I just know that it is a problem and I know why it's a problem. So that was the point of this video. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and for your attention. I look forward to speaking to you all again very, very soon.